All right. Feel underdressed with these two guys, hey? Where's my Rolex watch? Where's my suit? Oh no. Um. Okay, so first section was great. Really interesting getting into the details, and now we're going to go into two subjects. One, I want to get a macro look at things. So, speak to an Australian recruiter. Yeah, we're doing great, killing it. We're the greatest. But Paul knows if you're the greatest or not because he probably has your books. So he knows who's doing what they need to do, and that information is gold because it cuts between all the noise. And Darragh here is an excellent operator. So I suppose just I'll let Paul introduce himself first.
So yeah, Paul Masters. I've been doing work within the recruitment industry for probably about 20 years. We run a firm called Sovereign Private, and we focus on the staffing and recruitment market. We do tax, accounting work, also virtual CFO work for the industry. And more recently, starting in 2019, we started doing M&A work, mainly working on the sell side of transactions. We've got 25 staff in Sydney, and it's run by myself and my wife, Sheridan.
These two lads are wondering, how many millionaires have you made since 2019?
There's probably, in terms of deals, there'd probably be 15, I would say, and yeah, and one that is probably worth $250 million. Yeah,
$250 million.
yeah.
Can you tell us who that is?
Tracy Thompson at Finite. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, yeah.
Incredible. Okay, great stuff. Okay, so going to get into some of the details on this.
Mm.
I was lucky enough to have you on the podcast years ago,
Yeah.
and I knew nothing about the subject, and it was just fascinating. So hopefully I can illuminate some of you who don't know how that M&A world works. I appreciate some of you have big agencies here. Some of you are thinking of setting up an agency. Some of you have independent recruitment agencies, but hopefully we're going to get to the nuts and bolts of how you can sell something. And if you're not selling something, how you can perform it within an inch of its life. There he is.
Very good.
Give us a bit of an intro into yourself and I'll tell them all the lies.
Sure. So my name is Darragh Everard. I'm the managing director of the Anderson Partnership and a recruitment firm called Urku in Ireland. So my background's 15 years in the industry. Started off in Ireland, moved to Perth, worked for Robert Walters for a couple of years, trained there, and that's where I met Dualta. Joined the Anderson Partnership.
Taught him everything he knows.
To give me a break. But we have quite a few stories on each other, so let's not.
Only one of us cares about
That
our public
camera-
image,
that-
though.
That camera's rolling. I think both of our careers could be over in about 90 seconds, so let's not go there. But no, so I joined the Anderson Partnership about 12 years ago. I was approached by the owner at the time, who was a very successful recruitment entrepreneur, currently our chairman in both TAP and Urku. And he was looking to set up an office in Perth, which myself and my boss at the time did. We grew that from 3 of us to 15. And then I moved to Ireland, set up an office firm there. Again, grew that from 1, myself on day 1 to 15. And then he and I completed a management buyout. We bought it off the group. So we have our own business in Ireland, recruiting professional services. I then moved out to the Caribbean with his blessing. I caught him on a really good day during COVID. I had an idea for an offshore recruitment company that would place people into tax-free jurisdictions. So my thinking was during COVID, we had lots of government subsidies that the governments were going to want to take back. And we had lots of young people who'd qualified as accountants and lawyers in their parents' bedrooms and wanted to go and travel somewhere. So I moved out to the Caribbean for a couple of years, Barbados and Cayman, set that up out there. And then I was sitting on the beach in Cayman for 6 months and 1 day of the year for tax purposes, and then coming back to Ireland for the rest of it. And really
We had a good time there, right?
Great time, really good time. But I was 10 years in at that point, and I think, whenever you start off in recruitment, you sit in front of someone and they tell you, in 10 years you can have your own business and be sitting on a beach and it all goes really well. I got that, and then decided I wanted a little bit more punishment. The chairman of TAP asked me to come over here because his MD had resigned and asked me if I'd run this business. So I moved out to Sydney 2.5 years ago. So I'm based here in Sydney, but travel a lot to our offices in Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Auckland. Still go back to Ireland a bit. Unfortunately, I don't have the time for Cayman anymore, which I wish I did. But consolidated back into Ireland. So essentially I run all those offices. We have about 70 people today.
All right, excellent. I suppose, yeah, Darragh mentioned that we worked together 15 years ago. He actually said to me, I'm working towards getting a job where I can run 4 or 5 offices, just fly to different offices and make it work and set up new offices. And here he is. So nice little anecdote. Another one is we mentioned Backdoor Barry. He'll love to get mentioned here, by the way.
Yeah, we need to clarify that.
So Backdoor Barry, he's a debt recovery lawyer in England. And in England, everybody's a shark, right? This is Disneyland. Like in England, it is hard. And you come in some difficult situations. And one time I brought Darragh. Darragh came over and he spoke at my son's christening. And my mother says, I roll him out every time I'm trying to take the bad look off myself, which might be true. And so anyway, we go down to Brighton where Barry's based, and we go into Barry's office. And Darragh, I said, this is Darragh. He runs this in Dublin, has this in Australia. They've recently closed their London office. There might be some debt there. And he said, okay, let me make a phone call. And before we knew it, you'd made a ton of money on debt recall. We had a great weekend, and that was it.
Tell me the baseball bat.
Yeah, you tell him about the baseball bat.
So this guy is very good. He's a recruiter turned lawyer. So that's all he does is chase debts for really angry recruiters. But he has this thing where for your first fee that he collects for you, he gives you a baseball bat. That's his thing. So you hang the baseball bat up in the office. So we had an office that had closed in London, and there was a book there of bad debt. And the guys who run the business said, look, forget about it. No one's going to get it. And I said, give it to me. Let me chase it. I said, will you give me some of it if I can get it? So I said to him, I said, we need to find someone who can get this cash. He said, let's go down here. Went down, did get a lot of it back, and got a baseball bat.
Here we go. So you never know in recruitment, right? Okay.
If we don't know KPIs, Darragh hits us with
Yeah. Proper order too. Yeah, deadly. All right, Paul. I suppose I'll start with you. After COVID, it was pretty amazing, right? Like everybody's figures were inflated. Are people thinking, I want to sell right now? Or are they like what was the general mood in the market at that point? And what's been the last couple of years from an M&A perspective? Because it's very hard to distill what success is at any particular time in recruitment.
Yeah, it was a fantastic time. It was a bit of a crazy time, 2022. There were agencies that wanted to sell during that time, and they did. Like Tracy Thompson at Finite was one of them. I think they'd been around the block a few times, and they knew that the good times probably wouldn't last. And we did over the period of 22 to 23, we did 7 deals, and most of those businesses went backwards in 2024. In fact, I think all of them went backwards in 2024.
Let me run through some housekeeping questions. How much do I need to make from a profit perspective to get the conversation with you that makes sense?
It's the minimum is probably $2 million EBIT. But
can you explain EBIT?
Yeah,
I'm sure everybody knows, but
EBIT is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So that's the effectively call it profit before tax that you have to make. But to get a really good multiple, you're probably looking at 3.5 million EBIT. And
so if I have 2, and I'm a
You're
perm
still
business.
saleable. You're still very saleable.
What do you get
We've
me?
sold
What do you get
business.
me, Paul?
With the and this
I
is
want
all.
5 multiple.
Yeah, we'll easily get 5,
Yeah?
depending on
Okay.
depending on a few things. But the the ACR World deal we did was around, and this is all public information, so you could look at Mawson's accounts in Manchester and see this. But that was around that $2 million mark, and we got a multiple of 6.3 on that.
Wow. And so a lot of the things we're told from advisors is you have to have a contract book in order to be able to sell.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, this used to be drummed a lot. The perfect harmony was 50% at a gross profit level was 50% perm and 50% contracting. I tend to disagree with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but an agency that is predominantly perm can still be sold, and a good example was 4Quarters.
Yeah.
Back in the beginning of 2024, where that business was 75% perm, $6 million EBIT. This is all public information. You can look at the Japanese buyers' accounts, and we sold that for 7 times. 75% of the business at 7 times, and then we had a put and call, which we will exercise later this year at 7.5 times the EBIT in the FY26 year.
So if we could delve into that deal, if you may, because I know a tiny bit about it. If how long were they required to stay in as a leadership team, and what does the next stage of that deal look like, just for anybody that's thinking about that type of thing?
So there's only a requirement to stay during that period up to the in that case it was a put and call, or generally you hear earn out. Earn out is more European and American, but where you've got Japanese, it's more of a put and call. But you're only required to stay in until that last payment's made, and then you can exit after that. But there are still restraints. Yeah.
Do you have to exit, or can you buy back in at that stage, or is there any?
Generally, you wouldn't buy back in, but a good example of somebody that stayed in was I don't know if you guys know James Hone at Bluefin. He stayed in for quite some time after the earnout, a good 5 years. But he, the deal that the Japanese put to him was a terrific deal, and it was more of a strategic deal. It was more to grow Bluefin and outsourcing's business in Australia through acquisition. And James jumped at that role, and that's generally what most owners we try to put them in a role afterwards where it's a bit more strategic. It's not as though they're running teams. It's more of a strategic role to grow that business, not only in Australia but in the APAC region.
Who's buying it, and what are they buying?
So we've focused a lot of energy on the Japanese market over the last 2 years, or probably nearly 3 years now. Traditionally, the Japanese buyers in Australia have been Recruit, Outsourcing, Will Group, and Persol, these sort of the big boys in the Japanese market. But what we've done is focus more on the next level down within the Tokyo Stock Exchange, which there's probably, and this is what people don't understand, the Japanese market is massive.
Second biggest in the world, right?
Yeah, it's huge. So there are about 300 recruitment and staffing businesses in the Tokyo Stock Exchange, and you would never have heard of them. So the business that bought 4Quarters, for example, called Matching Services Japan, you would never have heard of them. But we tracked them down, and Nobody speaks English. It's very challenging, but what we've done as a firm is we've built a network of buy-side advisors in Japan that assist us with translating the flyer, which is sort of like the initial document that you send out, and then the information memorandum as well. They translate it all. We go to market in Japan. The buy-side advisors help us. They get paid on the buy side. I get paid on the sell side.
Can you succinctly explain to me what's the difference between getting a 5 and a 7 multiple? Like what does my business have to do? And I suppose I want to open up with that question then to yourself in terms of the operational impacts of that. Like, because I'm hearing
Yeah,
I think Faden were the last big one in the UK that went on a perm basis.
Yeah, it's look. There's a couple of things that are sort of you've got to tick the box on. Firstly, that EBIT number that I was talking about, that profit number, it needs to be at a certain level to get that. 3.5 is the sweet spot, but it's possible to do it at 2. Secondly, second tier of management. You've got to have the second tier of management in there. If the founders,
that's you guys there.
If the founders are still running the business and are still heavily involved in the business, and even worse, they're actually on the tools, that's not a good thing. They need to have almost made themselves redundant. So you've got to have that second tier of management. Third thing is, it comes up all the time, is client concentration issues. So where you've got one client that represents over 15% of the gross profit of the business, if it's over 15%, normally it has to be discounted down. So that's the, that's a deal breaker. And probably, overarching all of that is if you're a generalist, you're going to struggle with getting that sort of multiple.
Who's selling then? Like which disciplines are hot?
I think I could sell anything that's niche. Yeah.
Nicely played. Nicely played.
Niche. Yeah, that's niche.
Yeah.
Where I struggle is where you've got an agency that, they've been a fantastic technology recruiter over the years, and they've decided to go into healthcare.
Yeah.
That's where it. I'm sure it puts some
Or a rec direct that's turned into a note taker.
But it's not saleable with if you've got a niche in an area and you are the best in that area, in that particular niche, you are very saleable.
So Darragh, taking all this on board, what does that mean for businesses that are growing? What does it mean for your own experience when you come into a business? You've been in for the last 2 years, have you?
Yeah, 2.5 years. Yeah.
Can you walk us through what that means from looking at the balance sheet to planning how you execute performance across loads of offices?
Sure. So I think the first thing is to work out, how you get to that EBITDA figure. And there's only really 2 components of that. One is you look at your cost base, and then you look at how you can drive revenue. I think largely in recruitment, there's not much you can do about your cost base if you're competing at a certain level. Like, you have to pay salaries at a market rate if you want to retain the right people. If you want to meet, CBD based clients, you largely have to pay rent in there. CRMs typically cost what they do. This new one sounds like it might be pricey, but worth it. LinkedIn costs what it does. Expenses cost what they do. There's very actually little I believe you can really do about the costs per head. And then you've obviously got your fixed costs as well. So that could be leases, whatever other agreements you're involved in, LinkedIn contracts being another. So once your fixed cost base is at a certain point, you need enough headcount to cover that to be able to justify hitting the EBITDA number. So we just try and really focus on driving revenue. So that's really the key.
So let's jump into that.
Sure.
So you come over from being on a beach in Barbados, living your best life, right? And you get that phone call. Like, do you want to come back into the frying pan? And you're like, "Fucking put me in, coach." Right. So you're Sydney, you're looking at the figures, you're doing the boardroom meeting. What does that look like from here's where we're at? How do you performance manage your way out of that?
Sure. So I guess whenever that happens, it's a little bit dependent on what's happening both internally in the business at the time and then externally what the market is doing as well. So my trip was well planned in a lot of ways, but as Paul detailed, that downward curve was about when my plane landed, I think, that you were talking about in terms of the industry. So that proved difficult in itself. Then we also had a number of own internal issues as well, that were localized in various different offices, and we had to rebuild a number of offices. The thing I learned through that is that each office that we have had, it typically pivots on the individual or individuals that run it. If you have a bad person running an office, it's going to fail. And we've had a few of them. If you've good people or a good person running an office, it can be a success really quickly. So we've actually rebuilt a few offices and certainly grown our Sydney one with the right people running them.
I can't believe John Bohr placed them. I'm fucking fuming about it.
But it's about getting those right people in, because
Staking into your event anymore, though. The $5,000 over telling them.
and then I think it's about trying to drive the right behaviors in the business. And I think ensuring that you have the right incentives, whether they be career-wise, commission-wise, incentive-wise, and then the right consequences for lack of performance as well.
Yeah.
Then that just hopefully keeps people in the right zone, and then you just have to try and retain the right people.
So the performance stuff interests me. So, and obviously the guys have done quite well who are here. What is it? So you're a very good judge of character, knowing you. How do you weed out the time wasters? And who are the people that you grab and you go, do you know what? You're going to make us a ton of money. You're going to make you a ton of money. This is going to work out. What's your process? Can you give us some details on that?
Sure. It's funny, we talk about this a lot, actually. We're even talking about it yesterday. It's even in the small detail. Like, I was running a training session yesterday for some of our new starters, and I can tell by the level of engagement in the session who I think will be a success and who won't. So there's a few stages to that process. I think the first is hiring people. There's a few things that are really important to us. One is, do they actually want the job? I think that's the major component. Do they have the desire for the job? Do they want to make money? Do they want to be meeting people? And do they want to do sales? The second thing is, are they positive enough to believe that those opportunities are out there? Are they then resilient enough to deal with it when those opportunities aren't out there? And then a really big thing that I've only been really realizing recently is the best people know what they're responsible for and what they're not responsible for. So often deals fall off, and that's why people leave the industry. But some of those events they weren't really responsible for, but they were responsible for how many meetings they booked that week, how many CVs they got out, how many new clients they approached, how many candidates they regged, how many calls they made. And if they just understood that they were responsible for that and not the consequences of some of it, I think they typically do really well.
When you're selling a business, do you have any idea on the culture of accountability on the business, or is it just you're the accountant looking at the figures? Like, can you get a feel of here's who I'm dealing with, and you're talking to your clients and going, listen, I know they have this system in place.
Yeah, it normally shows through in the results. It's interesting,
Is that over a long period of time, or?
Yeah, it needs to be over, and this is part of the issue that we've had. I said I did 7 deals in the period of 22, 23. From February 24, February 25 to now, we've done 0 deals. And the reason is we're catching up on the poor performance during 2024.
We spoke about this.
Yeah, it's the industry. Now there are some exceptions.
Could deals happen?
Healthcare's an exception, but
Could deals
generally,
happen though?
Yeah, like we've got 3 deals that we're working on at the moment that will, touch wood, should happen before the 30th of June. So, and that is a result of good figures in 2025, and 26 is looking good as well. So they're back on track. So they've got an increase. They've got growth from 24 to 25. then now they'll have growth from 25 to 26. That's enough to go.
So just on that though, if the figures are beneath, would people still buy something if they thought they'd get a decent multiple for something? Like if they thought they'd get a bargain, would they buy, the buyers?
If the business wasn't performing, or
Let's say it's performing less than 3 million.
the problem is buyer expectations. Is seller expectations on price. That's the issue. Everybody. And the industry, I'll talk to somebody and they go, right, 2022, that's what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting for the EBIT that I made in 2022. And that in their mind, that's where they want their 7 times based on the 2022 numbers. But that's not the way it works. It's based on the last financial results. Look, at the moment, the transactions that I'm working on will probably be based on the FY26 numbers. And then we'll true it up. So we're running to a forecast on the 30th of June for 26.
It's an interesting one because you think like, would people just go, I'll give you 4 times multiple, you're at a weak point?
Yeah, they will, but the sellers will never accept it. That's the issue that we've had is that, and we pride ourselves with finding a strategic buyer. Now, if you don't achieve your forecast, or that's going to impact the price. We were working on a process in 2023, and this business was a fantastic business, perm business. It's doing $10 million EBIT, shooting the lights out. Now we had a forecast of not an overly aggressive forecast. It was 10.6. They ended up getting 4.7. That it was so bad in terms of the drop off of performance and we had a buyer lined up. We had everything ticked all the boxes, but the performance just kept on sliding every month. But that was the industry. It was the whole industry was feeling pain. The low point in the industry, as I say, there are some sectors that are not in this category, but the low point in the industry was December 2024. Yeah. That was the bottom.
I have some friends and they do what you do on the UK side, and they've worked 5-10 years on deals, and everything fell off.
Everything fell away because nobody was achieving forecasts.
You wouldn't be sitting here having a chat, right?
It's just look. This is the first event that I've been to, touch wood, where we're feeling optimistic about the market.
Yeah, because
we've seen sustained growth in the market.
Can I ask you just a bit more detail on that? So technology, AI, all of that. From the buyer's perspective, is it swallowing the market, or are you still optimistic about the future? Because
it's at this stage, no. But if I had to predict, and because I'm having conversations with a lot of business there, so I talk to the M&A team in the large agencies around the world. Generally, what I'm hearing is that there's a slant for where there's definitely search and retained search is becoming more prevalent in discussions. So I am seeing a steering to sort of that more high end recruitment or search. It's definitely I'm hearing it more and more. Also, what I'm hearing is higher margins with contractors. And it comes down to the payday super thing. It's if you're a blue collar recruitment agent or blue collar staffing agency, and you're doing $300 or $400 million revenue, but you're only putting $3 million or $2 million onto the bottom line, the margins are so slim and the tied up working cap is so massive in the business. Something like payday super just has horrendous consequences. Buyers don't like that. They like high margin businesses, and that's why we've seen a professional services statement of works.
Statement of work's very interesting one. And if we want to just delve into that piece a
Yep.
little bit more, in IT recruitment, that means you own the project manager, right?
Yep.
You own the whole. You're almost like a CXE, or so you're an IT integrator with a project manager,
Yep.
and you're running stuff.
Yep.
They go from 15% to 30% on the margins, right?
The margins are high, depending. Look, most of it's time and
In your
materials.
world, that's change management.
Yeah.
And
Most of it's time and materials as well. You get some of the more sophisticated agencies out there that turn to fixed price contracts, but the majority of them are time and materials, and the margin is significantly more.
Darragh, how much of success is based around creating your own talent or headhunting from other people?
Personally, I think building your own. I prefer that. Yeah.
Why is that?
I think that you can train people the way you want them to. I think that you can try and build their mindset a little bit as well. So we did some analysis on this recently. We've hired a number of people from other agencies, either locally or internationally, as well as generated our own consultants from scratch. And we tend to have better success with generating our own consultants from scratch. So I prefer it.
What do you think the secret sauce is for taking somebody from scratch?
Having the right environment for them, the right tools. We're very fortunate. We have our number one biller, Stephen, running our training program. Actually, Stephen, you might be good at this answer. That's Stephen there.
What was the question?
What? Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions.
Right, go for it.
Okay, so Stephen, you are in the detail, right? What's the difference between good and a really good recruiter? What do you like to say?
Just attitude. Attitude number one, always. Like someone said earlier about, oh, they got just told to dial 100 people off the spreadsheet. I think that's the secret sauce. If you can put someone in a room, say, look, do this, and they don't ask any questions, they just get stuck in, you can work with that. It's the people who's like, I'd rather focus on quality, I'd rather do this, I'd rather that. You don't know what that is. You're still green. So
Yeah.
you learn by doing. Like it's just consistent reps. You want to run a quicker 5K, you have to do 50 kilometers in a week to get there. You want to lift heavier in the gym, you have to do consistent reps. And if someone has the attitude where they just come in, they roll up the sleeves, get stuck in, they might know what they're doing, but they will get results. Like we do these events and I go to them all the time. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with what people are saying because it's a real simplified job. You put two people in a room, if it works out, great. But it's all the analysis paralysis, all the projects on LinkedIn, all the shit, to be really honest. The bread and butter is building relationships with people. And you build relationships by doing the job. Like if you do enough quantity, whether you're good, bad, or ugly at the job, you get money. But when you mix good quantity with high quality, that's the real result. And it's the people who don't ask questions, who just not don't ask questions, but they're prepared to do the hard yards. That's the secret sauce. People who roll up the sleeves and just get stuck in. If I ask them to do 50 calls in a week, the person I want is someone who's going to do 100. Because you get two recruiters starting day one. Recruiter A does 50 calls. Recruiter B does 100 calls. In 6 month times, recruiter B has twice his experience as recruiter A. So I would just say reps and attitude.
Makes sense, right?
This is quite simple, really, isn't it?
Can you come up here and sit down? We'll get that.
No,
So look,
I-
it's great to see enthusiasm for it like that. How do you? So you're in the coalface then, right? You know who the bluffer is, who they're not.
Oh,
How do you work it? How do you work it out when you're interviewing a recruiter? What are some of your tricks to go time waster? Like you're going to be right. You're going to be right, and you're going to be doing 5Ks with us and coming out for a pint at this time, and you're going to do all the work. And
Well, I always think there's two types of people in the world. People who talk about doing things and people who do things. So say, for example, we've hired people with experience. they've came with supposedly a massive billings history, but they've came already expecting to hit the ground running. It's the people who don't have experience who are prepared to get stuck in tend to do better quicker. So you can ask all the right questions, and people in recruitment are good at bluffing. But I love people who have had good life experience. Maybe they've had a hard upbringing, or have they had a sporting background? Maybe they've run a marathon, or we've interviewed a guy who climbed Kilimanjaro, and I'm like, they're the things that I look for, because life experience is what allows you to connect with people. Like, Darragh traveled around the world. Like, there's no one you can put on the phone with Darragh who he can't find common ground with. And like my personal opinion on recruitment is just building relationships, and that's how you build a relationship. You find common ground. So you can. I don't want someone who's like coming in saying like, I'm a sales expert. I built 500k. Like, that's great, but you're here now. What are you going to do here now? And the person who comes in who gets stuck in from the start and is just dialing numbers like mad, that's someone I want to work with. We always call it the trenches. Who do I want to be in the trenches with? Because that's what I look for if I'm going to speak with someone, or if I do a training session with someone. Who do I want to be in the trenches with? Who do I want to BD with at 5 o'clock on a Friday? Who's going to be there?
Yeah, very good. Okay, so let me open up some questions. So, obviously, Paul's expertise is knowing what everybody in Australia builds, what everybody wants to buy, what the performance metrics are. Darragh's excellent at managing and creating monsters like these guys. Let me shoot out a question. Who's got one? There we go.
What industries are you looking at this year in terms of success and volumes? What industries do you see the best agencies operating?
Anything that's cyclically resilient, that's and that's why healthcare's done reasonably well over the period. Although their boom year was probably 2024, ironically, the year that the rest of the industry was down, but it's performed quite well. I think that anything that's got any industry that's got terrific growth prospects. So if you're in building construction and infrastructure, we can map out all the infrastructure projects in Australia over the next 5 years, and we can see that there is a assuming that it's not all cut off, but you can't start these things. The great thing is you can't start them and half finish them. The majority of the projects need to be finished. So where there's proven growth in a particular segment, that's attractive to buyers.
So somebody gets excited about blockchain. We never hear about that anymore. You're like, oh, that's a fad. I'm not into it.
Yeah. It's technology's been hit very hard, and that sector of the market was probably the hardest hit in 2024. There wasn't too many agencies that didn't suffer during that time in that sector. Luckily with a finite deal, we did a 9-month earnout, and we were out based on the 23 numbers. So we got out of it, thank goodness. But unfortunately the rest of the industry really did feel the heat. And with technology, for example, it's just started to recover. As I say, the December 2024, that was the low point with technology, and then it slowly crept back up over that period. And we're starting to see sustained growth. I would say that, we'll have some agencies in technology that are for sale probably in 6 to 9 months, because they're starting to get back to where they were.
And they can expect 7, or
we'd be shooting for those.
Even if they're like, would they get more if it's contract or?
No, we'd always shoot around those numbers, because they're the great thing is now I can show the Japanese other deals that have been done in the industry, and I just go, well, here are the comparative deals.
Yeah.
And I can be perfectly honest with them.
Yes. What can I?
You talked about finite being like a 9-month earnout. What's typical? Like, what's a
Yeah, that's really rare.
Right.
That's super rare.
3 years, right?
3 years at the longer end, and we are seeing now longer earnouts than we were back in 22.
is that given that basically everyone fucked up in 20?
Yeah, it's just that they want to see sustained growth and they want you to prove it. So we are seeing 3-year earnouts now. With interestingly, with 4 quarters, that was the first time ever that I've extended the earnout of a deal. Like originally it was going to be an 18-month deal, and we extended it to 30 just because we could see storm clouds on the horizon when we did the deal back at the end of the deal was negotiated back at the back end of 24, and it completed in February 25. But we could see the market was turning, and we thought, okay, 18 months is not enough time to get things back in order. We need to extend it out, and thank goodness we did.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you have touched on this subject briefly already, but I'm speaking with a lot of recruiters that are focusing on just permanent or just contract and temp. When it comes to like an overall value of an agency or selling a company, how do you assess the importance of having a mixture of both?
Yeah, it's not as important as it was. Like the sweet spot used to be 50-50. But what I've found is, for example, in the Japanese market, you don't find a lot of agencies that do permanent contracting or permanent temp.
Yeah.
And search. And they'll either do temp, they'll either do recruitment, they'll do search. And that's the same with the US market as well. But they can do that because of the size of the market. We can't do that here. We can't just niche and say we're never going to do contracting, we'll just focus on perm. Our market's not big enough. We need to diversify. So the problem that I have with Japanese is that when they look at something, when they looked at the 4 quarters deal, they said, oh, we love the perm business, but we don't really want that contracting book. And we nearly fell off our chair. Because it was, about 23% contracting. And,
They probably worked their asses off.
they did. They worked, and it was paying a reasonable amount of the overheads as well, because you could rely on the cash to come in every month. And they effectively said, no, you guys can keep that. And we said, well, it's too interwound in the business. We need you to take that as part of the deal. So I don't think it's absolutely imperative to have a combination of both. Europe in the UK, which is very similar to Australia, you do have the mix. It's very common to have the mix. And through most of Europe it is, but not in Japan and the US, it's not. So it's finding the right market for your agency. And that's what an advisor does.
Yes.
Sorry, I'll stop hugging the questions. Is it more attractive or less attractive if you're national? Like if you're just in the
Yeah,
US,
good
just
question.
Melbourne-based, would it make a difference?
Can you give us a bit of context into your business?
We're Sydney with a Melbourne office. I guess it's something for us. It's like, do you go?
No. It's a really good question, because to answer it direct doesn't matter. And as long as you have a national presence, you don't necessarily have to have offices in every city. It's not an issue. No buyer is going to look at it and go, oh, why don't they have an office in Brisbane? Or as long as you're still approaching that market and still doing work within that market, that's fine.
Yes.
So we talked a lot about profitability of an agency and then temp and perm mixes and stuff like that. But whether you want to sell a business or you want to create a sustainable business, what would be 2 or 3 other things that a business owner would want to focus on to make it sustainable or sellable?
Yeah, it's. I think the sort of going back, and I don't want to sort of repeat myself, but it's that second tier of management. You've got to grow a great leadership team. And if I look at the finite business, there was a terrific leadership team. That's why we could negotiate the 9-month earnout, because it could run itself quite, with Tracy stepping away. The client concentration issue, it is amazing how many agencies I see where they've got, particularly in Perth, where I see agencies and they've got one client that represents 75%, and it might be, they might be dealing with 7 different procurement managers within BHP or Rio or Woodside, or but the bottom line is it shows up as the one client when a buyer's looking at it. So that's super important. I think all the metrics, the stuff that Nigel Haas talks about all the time. Just make sure you're focusing on those metrics. If you've got staff costs that are starting to blow out, and you're seeing that staff costs are heading towards 75-80% of your gross profit, you're never going to make any money. You're never going to make any money. You've got to get it down to 40-50% to make serious money. So are you paying your consultants too much? Do you have underperforming consultants within the business? So it's the metrics count for so much when a buyer's looking at the business, because that's what they see. And it's coming back to your questions on culture. Not enough checks are done on culture.
Yeah, let me let Darragh jump in on that. So, I know you're quite proud of your leadership team here tonight. How does a business develop that second tier of leadership from just being pillars, and how do you check in the culture, like you said?
Sure, I think it might start off with my point around why people get into recruitment and why they are good. It's the desire to do the job in the first place. The desire to want to help people, to hire, to train, retain, build, diversify their skill set over time.
Make money.
Yeah, and maybe just want to see themselves down the line, not just doing sales all day, every day for the next, say, 20 years. And a lot of people do that and they do very well out of it, but it's maybe just developing those other facets to your skill set that will enable your career to go in maybe a few different directions over time. Because I think, like,
the game has to evolve, right? For everybody.
I don't think it has to evolve for everyone, because I know people that are really happy just billing and they're 10, 15 years in. But I think if you maybe want to make more money over time, the ability to influence people to bill as well will generally generate more money for you, because then you can set up teams, companies, etc.
Yeah. And when you're in that process, how do you get them from being those hungry senior recruiters to future leaders of the business?
Ask them.
No, well, I'm asking you. I'm asking you. Like, what does that journey look like?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but there's no luck in culture.
Well, I think it's just
a numbers game, and
it's attempting it. Like, I think it's the only way you can do it is to try it. Like, we've a lot of people who try it and don't necessarily like it, and we've a lot of people who try it and really take to it. And I think the idea is not to fully remove yourself from the recruitment side of your role straight away, but generally just breed it in over time, so it becomes 5% of your week you're maybe sitting in on a few interviews. Then it maybe becomes 10% of your week you're booking a few interviews. And then you're training one person, and then you're training 2, and then you're doing a few KPI meetings, and then you're doing a few performance reviews, and then you're promoting people, and then you're giving them salary reviews, and then you train them how to do it. And it kind of goes like that. And then you have to assess your level of enjoyment along the way of doing that. And if you get a real kick out of that, then it's for you.
See, I'm trying to distill like 10 years of your experience and like an answer. It's really tricky. And you're like, fuck. Of course, this is obvious, but it's not obvious to everybody because you've done it for so many details. So does anybody have any questions on this? Yes?
I have one question on this. What I found a really cool ability that you basically have the confidence to go to whatever country and just hire one person or be by yourself and then grow into like 15 people. That's, I think, super interesting. And the question here is it only you finding the best people, or is there also something else involved? Processes, anything else besides finding the right people and training them?
That's a great question.
Yeah. So, well, firstly, I'm very fortunate that we have I've a really experienced board behind me. So in terms of, I guess, just getting through all the mistakes you need to make in any process to get to a successful conclusion, they've been able to educate me along the way. So that's been a massive help. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but what did they learn you? Does this board kind of do?
Yeah, so you eventually you can develop a blueprint over time. So again, I was very fortunate. The board that I work with have they've set up between them, I'd say about 30 offices in countries all over the world. So we set up offices in Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Singapore, London, Dublin. I was very fortunate. I was involved in 2 out of 14 office setups. So as we were growing the business, I got to see all these different offices set up, and I got to see the ones that worked and the ones that didn't. So I kind of got this real like first-hand experience at seeing why something failed, why something gradually failed.
What would you say the blueprint is though?
It's the person firstly. Like I said earlier, like I think it is though. It's based on the person of the people who run the office. Like that's one thing that we've really been able to demonstrate is that it always pivots on the individual, because the individual then dictates everything else that happens. It dictates the clients you bring on, the people that you hire, how people are trained, the ability to then retain people, and that's a really big issue because when you set up a new office, it's actually quite easy to attract people because people are fixated by anything new in the industry, and they'll generally want to get in at the ground level. But the difficult part becomes like 3 to 5 years in. I think it's relatively easy to get to 8 people. To get past 8 is really difficult, and then to sustain that for a long period of time is difficult.
It's a good question. Another question.
But it's an incredibly fun part of recruitment that I think a lot of people don't get, is that you can take it anywhere. Once you know how to do that, then you can take it anywhere, and that means that you can learn a lot. Like recruitment's very different around the world, and that's an interesting way to spend a career, I think.
Got another question? No.
Everyone wants to go, does it?
No. Yes.
I got one. What would be like the ideal time frame to achieve that kind of, so to get an office to a point where you want to sell size wise and revenue wise, in your head, what would be that like ideal time frame? Like what's too long and what's you're not quite ready yet?
I think that depends on the level of capital you have to set it up.
Yeah.
So if you've got the funds to set it up, which we were very fortunate to have on day one, because our chairman had exited his previous business, then you can do it relatively quickly. Like I think we got to 50 people within, I think 4 to 5 years. We got to 50 people in 4 offices, but that was because we had the finances and the expertise to do it. But I think there's too many factors to really give you. Yeah, because you
look at Storm in the UK. They built up, they hired everybody, they made it happen. They went bust, they phoenixed, they came up again. And you see it all the time. Firms get up, the boom happens, they hire, they get all their LinkedIn licenses, they get their offices, they then go bust, but the business isn't like caught on anything. So then they start up again. You can't predict the market, right? So people, timing, expertise. I don't know if there's a formula.
No, and there's also an incredibly amount of unforeseen events in recruitment and in the market. So you just never know what's going to affect you.
Yeah. Look, guys, 2 amazing guests. Really thank you all so much for coming here. Thank you to our sponsors as well. Really appreciate all you guys. And any last questions before we shut it off? No? All right. Bar is maybe still open, is it? No, bar's closed. Right, let's go to another bar. All right, thank you.